this time, so it's going to be another fireside talk, chat, panel thing. I'm not going to do it this time, so that's good. And there's 3 people coming in that are all pretty much amazing when you think about when you see their job titles. We're talking about Beyond the Hype, real-world AI strategies. And we got for you Juergen Mueller, CTO and member of executive board at SAP, which might be coming any second now. Okay, fair enough. We got Katrin Lehmann, CIO at Mercedes-Benz. You know that, like when you get a taxi. Tobias Regenfuss, Senior Managing Director, Technology Lead, DACH at Accenture. And we got the man, the myth, the leather jacket, Mike Butcher, Editor-at-Large at TechCrunch, who's going to run the conversation.
Ja, wegen dem Timer. Die nimmt er, glaube ich.
Got the leather jacket.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, my God, I feel like I'm in a Bond movie. Yes. We don't expect you to listen to our panel. We expect you to die, Mr. Bond. My goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a lovely time. Are you having a lovely time? Good?
Good.
Marvelous. We're going to have a fantabulous conversation now with some giants of industry, of technology. I feel like I really do. This is just awful. Just nobody ever give anybody a swinging chair. It's a disaster. We're going to have a lot of fun. Ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our panel. We've got Juergen from SAP. Round of applause for Juergen. Katrin from Mercedes-Benz and Tobias from Accenture. Now then, let's get into this. I feel like a judge. Juergen, you lead the Technology and Innovation Board at SAP. You were once Managing Director of SAP Labs, Berlin. You ought to know your stuff.
Should be.
That's right. What's going on? Because SAP, it's an enormous business. And of course, everyone's talking about AI right now. We're going to be digging into that right now in this real-world AI strategies. But is it the case that you are advising your clients or incorporating generative AI into your platform right now, or are you hanging back, or what's going on? Go.
Happy to share what's going on in SAP. I will only share a little bit of context. Many of you don't know SAP well, but for all kind of enterprise processes and applications, SAP is the de facto leader or one of the leaders. So we have 300-ish million regular cloud users using our software. So it's huge, very broad. And we have actually started our AI journey. I started it in 2015. Back then, narrow AI, very hard to get things going, but we did. And since half a year, roughly, we have launched 60 Gen AI use cases in production as well. So by end of the year, it should be 100. So we are embedding Gen AI today, as of now. We are also expanding the non-Gen AI automations and use cases as well. And we have a new co-pilot, a digital assistant. We call it Joule. And with that, by end of the year, we want 80%, 80, of all the transactions and interactions that people do with the SAP system. We want to enable their digital assistant to help them with that and do it directly via their digital assistant.
All right, right. And so let me just ask you a quick follow-up question. What foundational models are you employing? And to what extent are you building your own, building on your own models, or are you using open source? Are you using foundational models? Are you using open AI, et cetera, et cetera? What are you?
I always have the fun way of answering that because it's all of the above.
All of it.
All of the above. We really partner very broad. We use, of course, open AI.
So you're not locked into one.
We are not locked into one, and that's a decision that we made because the space is developing so fast. Also, someone has just asked me on a press interview, which model are you using for this digital assistant? So even if I told you if you release your article on Monday, it might be different already. So we share which models we use. It's very broad, all kinds of enterprise-ready models we use.
Right, okay.
And we built, one point on that, we built our own foundation model for tabular data. Because if you haven't worked with SAP or anything like that, imagine it like you're an Excel spreadsheet, but not one, but like a million. And there are very complex connections between those a million spreadsheets. And for that, it doesn't help you if you have read Harry Potter as a large language model and all the other information that is out there. It just doesn't help you. So therefore, there's genuine research work and development.
So you're employing AI where it appears to be appropriate. Katrin, obviously you're CIO for the Mercedes-Benz Group since April 2024, everybody. You've worked at SAP for 2 decades, though.
Absolutely.
So you've been a developer yourself, an engineer. Round of applause, everybody. Boom. For the women developers and engineers. You've also been head of product development, chief data officer, so you're very experienced. You know this company well.
Absolutely.
You know this company well.
I bet I do.
But so what sort of things are you doing? Give us a brief overview of how you're employing Gen AI.
So Mercedes-Benz has a huge history of being innovative. So we actually invented the car, right? So my colleagues are always very curious about applying new technology. And we've been applying AI since it was called machine learning. So actually we started quite early in the last century. And for those of you who drive a Mercedes, I think we were also one of the first ones who implemented the voice, the Hey Mercedes functionality, which is pretty cool, I believe. And I was never a car girl, but now I am. So they were able to really convince me about this industry. And also in the IT part, so I'm responsible for the enterprise IT. My colleague Magnus Ösberg is responsible for the in-car IT. So in both areas, we're using AI heavily. And already last year, and in my organization, we have about 5,000 developers. And already last year, we rolled GitHub Copilot out to them. So all of them are using them on a daily basis over a year now. We see huge productivity gains. And they're so very excited about everything they can do with it. But that's not all. We also implemented our own incubation and have a direct chat that our employees can use. It's an on-prem model, but we're also using, like you mentioned, all of the other models. So we have a lot of partners that we work with, and we have a huge funnel of use cases. So everyone in the company wants to use it. And we have a lot of them live by now, and we're learning every day, and it's so exciting, so much fun.
You mentioned a huge productivity lift.
Yes.
What sort of numbers are we talking?
Yeah, the number part is always a bit tricky, because, I mean, the developers don't really want to reveal how much they save. At the moment, they're saying...
Oh, we're just doing amongst friends. There's hardly anybody here.
So I think the developers are saying half an hour per day. I think it could be a little more. But I think overall, it's not only about productivity, it's also about creativity. And they're really using it in a great way these days.
I see. So obviously you're getting into it using on-premise models or off-premise models. So it's a real mix and match. That seems to be the message I'm getting a lot from the people I talk to when I talk to companies as well. Finally, Tobias, not last, because we are going to continue, but Tobias, at Accenture, obviously you've got a lot of clients. And in fact, I've been reading how the consulting world is making lots and lots of money about deploying AI for clients, possibly more than maybe some of the actual AI companies who are funded by venture capital rather than running on revenues, but that's another story. But what sort of things are you doing? I mean, are clients running scared and kind of tearing their hair out about what to do? Or are we kind of more into the mode where you can, work with them on any model they like, or and create productivity gains? as a result, or are we still in a kind of a slightly crazy phase?
I think we are probably still in a pretty crazy phase. I think all the industry have woken up to the opportunity because the bus has basically reached every industry. I think most active is amongst them Juergen, the software and platforms player, of course, that are building this into their platforms. I mean, we see this also here on the fair, where so many players are talking about building AIs into their platform, but also financial services is a big sector with most activity, as well as the telcos and all that have big customer front ends. But it goes very, very broad. We've run, by now, delivered more than 1,000 generative AI projects across the world, across the industries. And there are some common themes. I think everybody has started with building their enterprise GPT, right, and just an access to ChatGPT and call it Acme GPT, right, and declare victory. We have generative AI now in the company, but obviously that's only a starting point. Then I think it's enterprise knowledge management, like being able to discover your knowledge that is in the dark rooms of your enterprise much easier through a conversational interface. And I think then it's the whole customer service space where there's a lot of activity happening. SAP is doing a lot in this space together with ServiceNow. We are a partner, so we're very pleased to do this. And then, of course, Katrin, as you said, there's the whole IT.
Yes.
The industrialization and transformation of the way how we deliver IT services. I would say these are the three key things our clients have woken up to. But I think there's a lot of craziness, a lot of use cases, but little scaling so far. So I think there's a lot to be done to really scale this into the enterprise.
So we're still in the phase of things ramping up.
Yeah.
Well, we're at a conference called WeAreDevelopers. What is everyone doing with their developers? Are you letting them play with the models? Are you letting them kind of download random open source code and run it on your systems? Or what's your approach? Are you, is it a sandbox? Is it a playpen? Or is there a kind of like, you have a hard and fast strategy for your developers?
We have an AI experience lab internally, and I hope that you and in your companies have something like that too, where you can experiment with different models in a safe way. At SAP, more than 60,000 people use that so far from all kinds of different areas. So we have 40,000 developers, but also like in sales, in marketing, internal productivity. They also use these models and try things out. And then there we have like almost 30 different model versions available. As I mentioned, we partner very broadly because then and only then we can pick which are the best models for which use case.
Right, I see. And I noticed you said the word in a responsible way. Now, what do you mean? Let's unpack that because obviously, at Mercedes, you're responsible for cars. You're responsible for people's lives.
Absolutely.
For heaven's sake. So, deploying new technologies is, quite a big deal. What sort of, kind of checks and balances are you putting in? Because obviously, one of the big issues about generative AI is the training data. Where's the training data coming from? And what kind of, because obviously it's the things that are kind of a black box at the moment, and you still have to do a lot of testing to make sure it's accurate whatever it comes up with.
Absolutely. So we already gave ourselves a code of conduct, so to say, in 2019 to use GenAI responsibly. And we have a process to check how risky the use cases are from our perspective and which kind of certification they have to go through, internal certification, before they can deploy their models. But we also have a playground where we can test things out before we take things live. But Mercedes is always very careful in regards to governance, in ensuring that, especially in the car, but also in the enterprise IT world, that we take all precautions to ensure that we don't do any harm to anyone.
Right, so how do you section that off from the rest of the organization? Are you doing a lot of sandboxing, a lot of testing?
Yes, we do testing and then we do internal certification before we deploy.
I see, right. And what's the split between what you're working on, say, inside the enterprise and versus actually that goes into the cars?
Well, in the car, we have to be even more careful because they're actually human beings driving those cars.
At the moment.
So absolutely, we have to ensure that, that all the models are tested, that we are 100% sure that we don't do any harm to anyone. So there we label almost all use cases high risk. So that means a lot of deeper certification, deeper checks within the team before we deploy. But even in the enterprise area, so especially where we use data that is personal data related, those are always labeled high risk. So we deploy in our customer care center, for example, we deploy a lot of Gen AI. But when you have a breakdown in your car, you don't want to speak to a chatbot. Yeah? You want to speak to a human being. So therefore, we just support our customer support center employees to use Gen AI while they're speaking to someone who's maybe a little upset because something's happening. So we always try to think human first and then technology as a support for the human.
So you're keeping humans in the loop.
Yes, to ensure that we use it responsibly.
And what sort of safety procedures and sort of sandboxing are you doing with Accenture?
I mean, we mostly advise our clients on what to do now, how to drive generative AI in a responsible way. And I think many of our clients have realized they need something. Everybody is talking about it, but not even 10% have a sound framework in place because there are so many new things to be explored. I mean, there are concerns about bias, about hallucination, about copyright, and about new security risks. So I think introducing really new principles on how you deal with this technology, but then also adjust your risk management practices. And then you mentioned testing, Mike. I mean, you cannot do this on paper. We need tools. We need instruments to do this in an automated way. And I think that's a call out to all the developers here to help developing those technologies that we do not have today to detect this in an automated way. And I think there's a huge piece of work to be done that we can control these systems.
Well, and obviously one of the big issues that's been bubbling up over the last few months and last year or so is the sheer amount of compute power that is required to make generative AI run, or these models run, both either in the cloud or wherever it is, on-premise, running machines hot. Some say it's potentially more than even some of the blockchain technologies. So what sort of things are you guys doing on the environmental aspect? Because it's obviously it's beholden on technology companies to be more aware of their carbon emissions in the modern world. What would you say, Accenture?
I think there's a lot of discussion about the energy consumption, also the water impact, waste coming out of the increasing use of generative AI, in particular technologies. And I think this is right. We have to be very mindful on what sort of models, what sort of technologies do we use for what purpose. So I think applying this concept of frugality. So do use as little as possible to solve the problem. Don't throw a simple text summarization at GPT-4 Omni. It's not required, right? And I think there we have to do much more in this space. But I think there's a big but. We also have to acknowledge that digitization can significantly contribute to achieving our carbon emission savings targets. And we will need technologies to get there. Like if you just look at in the car industry, compare crashing a real car onto the wall and damaging it is part of a test, or doing the same thing in a high-performance computing environment. How much resources does it consume, right? And digitization has a big lever to play in our transition into a carbon-neutral world. We did an analysis with Bitkom here for Germany. We saw that we can achieve between 15 and 25% of the savings targets until 2030. So in the next 6 years, can come, and a piece must come from digitizing our energy systems, mobility, buildings, agriculture, and so on.
Yes, hopefully using generative AI actually gets us over that hurdle where we can actually be more efficient. Yeah. What about both of you?
Maybe let me add on. Sorry, Juergen, but so absolutely we have to consider the energy consumption. Nevertheless, Gen AI can help us also to save energy. So in our plants, for example, in Rastatt, we have been able to reduce energy consumption by 20% because we leveraged Gen AI. So it's also about optimization of production processes, of virtualization of production processes. So it's helping us to use the energy more wisely to ensure that we don't need so much and we can reach our sustainability goals. So sorry for interruption, but I just wanted to make that point. Yes, it's consuming energy, but it also helps us to save energy.
Right.
Yeah, on a corporate level, I mean, most companies have understood and have their CO2 emission targets, including SAP, to be a net zero company. And as developers, Tobias mentioned already some points, which models to use. Katrin mentioned a few points. But also on the macro level, think about where do you need to retrain models, because that is the really cost-expensive piece. If you can use an existing model, prompt it, or via retrieval augmented generation, give that context information, it makes, of course, much more sense if the outcome is good enough versus fine-tuning a model or even developing a completely own model. So that, in our experience, makes the biggest difference.
Perhaps just
Go ahead.
one addition, because we are in a developer conference, and I think it starts really with the developers being very mindful on the way how we use this technology and solving some of the hard and unsolved problems in the space, like really driving this idea of carbon-aware computing forward. And I'm sure many or some people in this room work in this space, and I think we need much more research and development in this space to build systems that are super energy efficient whilst really doing also the trick that we need. And it starts with this community that is meeting here today.
And obviously, we're all at a conference where we're all kind of testing the new technologies coming out and kicking the tires on these new platforms. But I'd love to know, what are you thinking about in terms of the next year or the next 2 years? If I was someone who wanted to join your company in the next couple of years, what would you advise me to learn, to get good at? Where do you think this is going? And what kind of skills am I, as a developer, an engineer, product, head of product, whatever it is, going to need to be bang in this world that you guys are building right now? Go.
Yeah, for me, it's a learn-it-all mentality. So oftentimes we think we know it all, but we don't, particularly with these massive changes. So it's about learning it all, being curious. Not everyone needs to be the AI super scientist, but you need to understand enough such that you can apply that. That is important.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I think it's curiosity. It's really always learning something new every single day. You're never done learning, so stay curious and really, dive into new things and test it out, and also teach others. I think in the organization, in the corporate world, a lot of people are afraid to say that they don't know something. But it's totally okay. None of us knows, but we have to learn constantly, and we have to stay up to date and help each other out. Yeah? It's really about teaching each other, trying it out. Also, if it doesn't work, that's totally fine. Test it out the new way. This mentality about, for you developers, this is normal, but in the corporate world, it's not yet. It's about talking about failure, learning from it. And learning something every single day, and really also admitting in meetings, actually, I don't know. In the corporate world, this is not so normal yet. For you, it might be, but we have to spread that culture.
Is it going to be easy when the AI says, "I'm sorry, I did it. It was my fault"?
That will come.
How about you, sir? What do you think?
I mean, in Accenture, we have 126,000 software developers. So, and I often get the question, okay, but in the future, you will have much less. And I think people do not understand. I mean, writing code is not the key work of a software engineer, right? It's reasoning, it's designing, architecting, planning. And that's not going to change. I think the tools will change. And what you mentioned with being explorative, being curious, being open, but also wanting to learn continuously, because the world will just move faster, as it always did.
Do you think that in the next few years that you'll need less developers because AI will be taking over a lot of code development?
No, I'm fairly bullish.
Hands up, you think you'll need less developers? Hands up if you think more.
Yeah, more.
Definitely.
Boom.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah, we need you.
Okay.
I guess we
Everybody can relax.
I guess we all are hiring as well.
Yes, definitely.
Well, that's a fantastic upbeat point on which to end, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up for Juergen Mueller from SAP, Katrin Lehmann from Mercedes-Benz, and
you.
Tobias Regenfuss
Thanks a lot.
from Accenture.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.